Hmong History, Lesson 3. Welcome back. Last time we've learned that the few of the Hmong had already entered the southwest by Northern Zhou Dynasty and Sui Dynasty. Kingdoms created from the 16 kingdoms up until Sui Dynasty were mostly Hmong kingdoms who expanded from the northern Mongol back into the south. They were the minorities who ruled over the majority, Shu Han, Chu, Dongyi, Nama, and Baiye. These were collectively Han people during Han Dynasty. Due to the many wars in the north and the Yellow River Basin, many fled to the Central and the Yangtze River. Those refugees or newcomers to the Central became known as Hua people. Hua were likely Han people who stayed behind in the north during the Three Kingdoms when Liu Bei and Sun Quan led many Han back into the south. They were either semi-Hmong or semi-Ma who migrated into the Central during this period. To the far northeast, it was known as Mongolia by this time. After the three groups Mochidan, Mochidan, and Mongshiwei migrated westward, the western region also became known as Mongolia. During Sui Dynasty, the Hmong government under Sui were having confrontation with the Mochidan and the Motujie. However, at one time, Motujie joined the Hmong government of Sui and attacked Mochidan. That pushed Mochidan back to the east or outward. Sui then expanded to the Liaoning Peninsula and also fought the Goguryeo. Many soldiers under Sui were not accustomed to freezing temperature and were dying at the Changbatshan mountain. This could be the Hmong version of Sanwei of freezing Death Mountain. The wars against the Goguryeo and the Motujie, Hmong government of Sui finally lost control after civil wars broke out within. The Yang family ruling came to an end once Emperor Yang Gang was killed. The civil war continued for some time until the Li family took over and formed Tang Dynasty. The leader during that time was Li Shude and his son Li Shiming, Emperor Taizong. After Emperor Taizong took over, many of the Hmong, Xiongnu Mongzhuran, Turks, and Tujie migrated to the Yellow River Basin. I want to point out that Tang government recognized the name Hmong as a people even though the national name was Tang. Literatures written during Tang Dynasty spoke of the name Hmong. The official language during Tang Dynasty was also part of the Hmong language. Tang vocabularies were part of the Hmong. For example, the word for you and I were known as O and Wu. I hope anyone interested in Hmong history will look into and do more research on the official language during Tang Dynasty. Also, the name Hmong was used in the southwest. During that time, Hmong took control of the southwest and had a good relation with Tang, so that region became known as Da Mongol, meaning the Great Hmong Country. The name Ancient Hmong was also used for the north and northeast. Ancient Hmong in Mandarin means, or it is Mongol. According to the Old Tang book, the Ma-Yi people finally have respect to the Hmong during Tang Dynasty. The name Hmong was used for the Hmong kingdom. The great Hmong country of the southwest was also referenced as Nan Zhao later on. Hmong of the southwest was the minority who ruled over the Ma-Yi, and Xi people. It was a slavery kingdom which Ma-Yi, Xi, and others such as Ma-Shu and Shu-Han were slaves to the Hmong in this region. That Hmong kingdom included part of present-day northern Vietnam and northern Laos. After Da Mongol or Nan Zhao fall, it became the Dali kingdom. The Hmong minority of that region integrated with the majority Western Ma-Yi and Xi people. Those people are now the Baizu, Yizu, Daizu, Tai, the Naxizu, Lisuzu, and other ethnic minorities. Han was also known to have lived in the southwest by that time. Shu-Han was part of the southwest, mainly Sichuan, Guizhou, and Yunnan. This whole region was named or originally known as Shu, regional area. To the north, Mochidan was next to Tang country. Among the Mochidan, there's a group known as Xi people. Presently, there is a group self-referenced as Xi people living among the Hmong in eastern Guizhou. They could be the Xi people who later migrated with the Hmong from the north into the south and took refuge into Guizhou 800 years later. These people speak a semi-Hmong language. Let's look at the tshawb people to the west. Tshawb was a mix of the Murong, Xianbei, Qiang, and other ethnics in the western mountains. They found the Tuyuan kingdom. Tuyuan kingdom then became the tshawb nation. Tshawb then later developed into the Tibet. There are evidences that Tang Dynasty was a Hmong kingdom. The name Hmong was used and was well known and widely used during Tang Dynasty. Under the original Tang chronicles, northerners were known under the name Hmong. Hmong was used with Tang country and was used in the southwest. Historical events in the Hmong history as well as history of China are not how they were defined and portrayed by many since the People's Republic of China. For example, it was not the Chinese that fought the Xiongnu, or it was not the Wuhu that fought the Chinese. After the Wuhu conquered the Yellow River Basin from the 16 kingdoms up into the Northern Wei and Northern dynasties, it was not the Chinese that fought the Hmong Xianbei. Rather, it was the Wuhu who first settled at the Yellow River Basin that fought the Northern Hmong Xianbei. Furthermore, it was not the Chinese that fought the Rouran during Northern Wei dynasty. It was the Hmong Xianbei that fought the left-behind people, including the Northern Hmong Xiongnu and the Rouran in the Northern Plains. During Sui Dynasty, it was not the Chinese that fought the Tujie Turks. Hmong Xianbei was the government of Sui Dynasty, and part of the Xianbei was the Tujie, who were left behind in the north. It was not the Chinese that fought the Goguryeo. It was the Hmong Xianbei and other people under Hmong Xianbei government that fought the Goguryeo. What happened to all the Mongol people, or the Wuhu who occupied the Yellow River Basin and the central region since the fall of Han Dynasty up until Tang Dynasty. That was some 800 years of Hmong and the Wuhu occupying the Yellow River Basin. Or from the time of Mongol of Zhou Dynasty until Tang Dynasty, it's close to 2,000 years of Hmong history at the Yellow River Basin and the northern regions. During Tang Dynasty, it was not the Chinese that fought the Mochidan to the northern front, or it was not the Chinese that fought the tshawb nation to the west. To appreciate the Hmong history and history of that time, we need to refrain from defining everything into Chinese. The word Chinese or China did not exist during that time. It was the Hmong and the Ma year, as well as others, that existed during that time. If we are to address Han for being Chinese during that time, the Han of the Southerners were mostly ruled by Hmong people for a very long time, since Hmong took control again of the Yellow River Basin. And of course, to the south. Han during Han Dynasty were Southerners, mainly the Shu Han, Ma Yi, Dong Yi, and Ye. Southerners were the Han government during Han Dynasty. We will touch base more on this topic shortly. At the beginning of Tang Dynasty, most people were known to live in Upper Tang. Due to the economy booming of the seafront cities, a large number of Tang people moved from the northern to the southern and to the eastern coastal cities. Like many kingdoms before, Tang country had its own struggle. Towards the beginning, Tang was changed to Zhou country for 15 years during the Empress Wu Zetian reign. Towards the end, the Yellow Turban Rebellion was the war that actually ended Tang Dynasty. The northern part of Tang at the Yellow River Basin became Lian country. Others of Tang regional country also broke away and formed their own kingdoms. Shu, Chu, Wu, Ye, Ming, also known as Ming Ye, Han, and the far south is Annan. Lian country then later became another Tang, which called later Tang. Later Tang then became Jing. Jing then became another Han country. Notice that there was a Han country to the south. These are now mostly known as the Cantonese. They were the Ye people, part of the Bai Ye. To the northwest, that area developed into another Tang country. It is being transliterated under the name Tangut. While many events took place in the south, from the beginning the Mochidan was expanding. Under the leader Abaoji, he united the Hmong in the eastern Mongolia region first, and then Mochidan began to expand westward. Most northern tribes were subjugated by Mochidan as they expanded east to west. There are three things I would like to point out during this era. First of all, Hmong named their heavenly cities Jingcheng. The main Jingcheng during Mochidan country were the eastern Jingcheng, the central Jingcheng, the upper Jingcheng, known as Shou Jingcheng, and the southern Jingcheng, which is present-day Beijing. And there was the western Jingcheng. The second thing we need to understand is that under the Hmong culture and marriage law, Hmong did not allow marriage among the same family name during that time. This was strictly enforced, and all those who lived on the Han country and the Yellow River Basin must abide by that law. This is very important when we trace Hmong history, and we must understand that the Han country here was living by a lot of the Hmong Xiangbai and some of the Hmong Xiongnu people and others such as the Qiang, the Di, mainly the Wuhu people. The third thing that I want to point out was that when someone died, Hmong during that time would sacrifice animals. They would eat and drink alcohol during the funeral time. This is something we need to do more research to better understand the Hmong culture of that era. Mochidan's ruling lasted for 109 years. There was a power shift after Mochidan had support from the Bohai nation. They then became powerful to the east. To the south, northern Han became another Zhou country, also later Zhou. To the northwest, Tangut was also known as Danxiang by that time. Danxiang regional area was also known as Western Xia. To the east was the Eastern Xia. Keep in mind that these were Xia Hmong people who fled the Yellow River Basin into the northern plains in the northeast during the fall of Zhou Dynasty. Mochidan took over the Eastern Xia region and formed Ming Dynasty, or Jin country. Their capital city is also known as Shoujingcheng, which is present-day Harbin to the northeast. Once Mochidan attacked Mochidan government fled to the west to live among the Western Xia region. Many also took refuge into the Yellow River Basin. Gradually, Mochidan attacked Song to the Yellow River Basin, and that forced Song government to flee south to the Yangtze River. Therefore, Mochidan expanded their control up to the Huai River. All these regions became Jin country. During the time Mochidan ruled over Jin country, there were two kinds of people according to the Jin Chronicle. It states that both the Hmong and Ma were selected to be officials, but the Ma often opposed the Jin government in not being supportive. By this time, Hmong Shiwei gradually developed as they involved with Mochidan government on the northern front. Do not forget that Mochidan, Mochidan, and Hmong Shiwei were the last three Hmong groups of Xia Hmong who came back into the Yellow River Basin. These people were all known to be called Hmong or associated with the name Hmong. After a leader, Temujin, defeated the Merkets and the Tatars in this region, Mochidan of Jin then promoted Temujin into an official. He could rule over other tribes on behalf of the Mochidan government. At one point, Temujin called Mochidan's emperor unfit to be a leader. The Jin's emperor was enraged, and when Temujin's ambassador was in Jin's territory, they detained and killed the ambassador. That's how the war between Meng Shiwei and Meng Jiesheng started. This is a photo of Temujin. He is known under Mong as Zheng Shigan, Ren Shigan, or Wang Shigan. Under English, he is known as Genghis Khan. Once Genghis Khan defeated the Meng Jiesheng in the Mong Tangut of Western Xia area. Mochidan, Meng Jiesheng, and Mong Tangut, as well as other tribes, were united into Blue Mongol Empire. Hmong during that time called their country tshawb, or Hmong tshawb. Tshawb was Song Tshawb to the south. Tshawb, Da Tshawb was Hmong country. Under Genghis Khan's leadership, Hmong expanded into Central Asia, Western Asia, and Eastern Europe. Our focus in this lesson is on the Mongol Dynasty. After the death of Genghis Khan, there were some struggles for power, and up until his grandson Kublai, who took over. During the beginning of Yuan Dynasty, according to one documentary, Hmong lived in Shaanxi, Hubei, and Kangxi regions. Kangxi is western region of present-day Nanjing, which Nanjing was originally known as Jiangkang. Jiangkang, Nanjing, Shanghai areas are also known as Jiangnan. Jiangkang, Kangxi was the western region of Jiangkang. Hmong were the minority in all these regions. However, they had communication among these three regions by messengers. Small Hmong communities were also known to have existed in Sichuan, Yunnan, and Guangdong. By the 10th century, Hmong had already occupied the central, southwest, and the south. During Yuan Dynasty, these Hmong were organized by Kublai to govern the Mongol country. After the fall of Mongol country, more of these three regions were being slaughtered by Hua, Han, Nanman, Dongyi, and Ming people, or Ming Ye. Hmong call it Ming Shua. These were Samuel's descendants. During the fall of Yuan Dynasty, Hmong fled the Yellow River Basin into Jiangxi region. They also took refuge into the forests and mountains of Jiangxi, Fuguan regions. Hmong also fled the eastern Jiangnan to the western mountains, mainly the ancient Jiangxi regions. Those in Shaanxi who could not escape to the south followed the Yellow River into the northwest. Others took refuge into the northern plains again. The green circles here are areas where Hmong took refuge into. After the war, many who survived the slaughters at ancient Jiangxi were tied up and banished into the forests. Hmong of Sichuan region fled into the mountain. Those in Yunnan fled into the west. Some Hmong in Guangdong were tied up and banished into the mountains. They later end up in southern Sichuan. Some male descendants, the Yi, Ma Yi, Na Ma, Bai Ye, Shu Han, Ming Ye, were the ones that were killing the Hmong during that time. According to the Hmong elders, Hmong with baggy pants were being targeted. Many then abandoned the baggy pants culture during Ming Dynasty. Besides, Ming government prohibited the whole culture and clothing. Once Yuan of the South fell, it became Ming country and Ming Dynasty. The green area here is Guizhou and nearby places. It was mostly lived by Ma Yi, Xi Yi, Xi Ye, Bu Yi, Po Bu, Miao Yi, Miao Ma, Na Ma, Mian, and so on. They were the minority of the Nama and Bai Ye people who did not want to be part of Ming Dynasty or Ming country. They occupied mostly this green area and to the west and to the south. Since Ming country, Ming government loosely attacked this green region from time to time, from 1373 to the beginning of the 16th century. During this time, some Hmong were known to take refuge into the eastern Yunnan border, Sichuan and Guizhou, now known as the Black Hmong Mountains. But Hmong were largely took refuge into Jiangxi Fuguan region. Most Hmong of the central plain and eastern took refuge into Jiangxi Fuguan. Most of those Hmong in this region here gradually settled down into western Hunan region. Other Hmong who took refuge into other areas, such as present-day Tibet, Burma, northern Laos, and northern Vietnam or Cambodia, later integrated with the majorities of those regional people. So all the history and literatures written about Samiao, the Ma Yi, mainly the Nama, Bai Ye, Xi Yi, Xi Ye, Dong Miao, Po Bu, Guizhou Miao Ma, Guizhou Miao Yi, and so on, of the southwest and in the south were not about Hmong people. All the Samiao, Nama, Bai Ye, Yi history are not the Hmong history. Hmong were the minority and did not enter Guizhou, this green area here, until the 16th century and during later time. This is Hmong history. Lesson 3. We will learn more about Hmong history in the next section or the next lesson.